This is PreAlgebra. Oh, sorry, it's 2, not 1. That's not good to write the wrong one. It's PreAlgebra 2, lesson 4.2 on greatest common factor. And what you're looking at here is an orchestra. Now let's say the orchestra conductor divides the, let me change my, okay, divides the orchestra up. And he has 48 violinists. He has 24 viola, people that play viola, and he has 36 cellists. Now, he wants to create an ensemble that's going to have an equal number of each instrument in it. So it had the same number of violins, the same number of violas, and the same number of cellos in it. So how would he figure out how many groups and what would be the best way to do that? Well, one of the ways to do that is to do the greatest common factor, which is also referred to as, that doesn't look like a G at all there, as the greatest common factor, GCF. Now, before I continue, it's important to know that a common factor whenever you have a whole number that is a factor of 2 or more non-zero whole numbers, it's called a common factor. So we know that 6 has factors of 3 and 2 in it. Now, if you want to find the greatest common factor, you have to list the factors. So let's put it to work. So we have we want to find the factors of 48 for the violinists and for the 24 ones playing viola and the 36 playing the cello. Now, if I list the factors, for 48, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, 24, and 48. And so note when I list the factors, I'm just doing the number, comma, number, comma. I don't have to do 1 times 2 when I list them like this. The factors of 24 are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24. And for 36, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and then we have 9, 12, 18, and 36. So what we're after is the greatest common factor. So all of these are common factors, but we want the greatest that is in all 3. Well, it can't be 48 because there is no 48 here or here. It can't be 24 because there's no 24 here. It can't be 36 because there's no 36 here. It can't be 16, and it can't be 18. The only one it could be is 12. And so the greatest common factor of 48, 24, and 36 is 12. And so that means that each ensemble will have 4 violins players, 2 viola players, and 3 cellos. Just a note that the common factors here, precisely, I said it a little bit, are going to be right here. These are common factors, and this is a common factor. I circle all of these, but that's not what I meant to do. Sorry. These are all the yellow boxes, these are all factors. The common factors that they all three have in common are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. But the greatest one, the biggest one of the common factors is 12. So if you had, what is the greatest common factor between 16 and 28? And you can work out the factors. I think I got them all. But we have the common factors here, and the biggest number there is 4. And so the greatest common factor for 16 and 28 is 4. And I did it quickly, so I may have left off something in between here, but I know that the answer is 4 there. So this can be tedious, trying to, start with 2 and either dividing, your number, starting with 2 and 3 and 4, and working your way all up to get all the factors. The other way that you could do it, now you could do prime factorization. Let's say you had 180 and 126, and so you could work it out all the way down. Just make sure, one, when you're doing this on your paper, every answer, there needs to be a space between, each problem. So between problem 1 and 2, when you're done working out that problem, you need to skip a space and then go to number 2. You should never ever have your homework crowded together or sloppy. It should be easily readable, and the answers should be very easy to find. And this is particularly important with prime factorization. You may need lots of lines to do it and keep yourself organized, and you need to do that. Do not cram it. I'm not going to read it if it's all crammed together messy. It either is going to be nice on the page, or you're just going to get a 0 for that problem. Now, let's look at, the other thing is to keep your lines marked so you can tell. When we get done here, we're after this line right here. But I have to keep everything and mark my lines so that I can tell the flow. Now, once I've done that, I can now write out 180 equals, we have 2 times another 2 times a 3 times a 3 times a 5. 126 is a 2 times a 3 times a 3 times a 7. Now I know in that the lesson before this I told you use exponents. We're not going to do exponents at this particular moment because we're trying to find the greatest common factor. And in this case, we have a factor here, we have a factor here, and we have a common factor there. And now that we know how many of these are the same, now I can use my exponent, and our answer would be the greatest common factor is 2 times 3 to the second power, and that will work out to be 18. How did I get that? I have a 2 right here, 1, 2, that's what I marked there. I have 1, 3, 2 3s, so that's 3 to the second power, and 3 to the second power is 3 times 3, which equals 9, but it doesn't really matter. I just want you to remember what that is. and that equals 18. So if the greatest common factor is 1, they're called relatively prime numbers. So let's see how we would identify. If we have, let's say, 28 and 45. And so we have 1, 2, the factors here, 7, 14, and 28. See, 45 is going to be 1, 3, 5, 9, 15, and 45. And the greatest common factor here is 1, and so that fits that category. The GCF here equals 1, and so these are relatively prime. That means that their greatest common factor is 1. Now, just relatively prime, the ones that are relatively prime are going to be when 2 or more non-zero whole numbers. So in this case, let me clarify here. We have 28, 45, and 1 that all are prime numbers. Even though the greatest common factor is 1, because that's in both of them, 2 or more non-zero numbers, we have actually 3 prime numbers in this set. Let's see what we got here. The factors of 15 are 1, 3, 5, and 15. And 51 is 1, 3, 17, and 51. The greatest common factor equals 3 here. So, going back up here, so the numbers that we were trying to look up was 28 and 45. Because the GCF is 1, we would say that 28 and 45, which I circled here, are relatively prime numbers. Down here, 3 is the greatest common factor, and so therefore 15 and 51 are not relatively prime numbers because the GCF has to be 1 in order to be a relatively prime number. And your assignment is due today, or if you don't get through, you'll have to take it home as homework and bring it back at the beginning of class tomorrow. Any corrections from yesterday's homework is also due if you took it home and did it, or you take it home as homework, as I meant to say. On page 166 to 167 is where your assignment is. You have exercises 11 through 18, 20 through 27, 30, 31, 40, and 51 are the numbers that you are to do. Make sure you write down on your notebook piece of paper what the assignment is. Make sure that you leave plenty of space between problems, and don't scrunch or angle or do anything like that with your answers. I want everything nice and neat.